Every time somebody sees me playing UFC 6, the first question they ask is it better than UFC 5? And I'm here to answer all of those questions because we're going to do a strictly gameplay review to get into all of this and really break down the nitty gritty. As somebody who's been playing the UFC games for a long time, I'm not the greatest at them, right? So you guys may not see that super ultra competitive opinion. Before we do, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. You guys have been enjoying the content. Let's go on ahead and get into it. Starting with UFC 6, as soon as you turn the game on and you go into a fight, the first thing that you are going to notice is the presentation. Now, there's like this blue hue that is like super like odd compared to all of the UFC games that we've played before. It's like this blue lighting, and honestly, I don't know how to feel about it. It doesn't really throw off much of the game for me because it truly doesn't. It doesn't really inconvenience me, but it is different than the last UFC games that we're used to, where it's basically just bright lighting and you don't really have no blue, behind that. And that's the thing there, the weirdness, right? And a lot of people have complained about the lighting. Some people even say that it's a bit of an eyesore for them to get accustomed to and even watch YouTube videos with. And I've noticed that while you're playing the game, it's super easy to ignore and really just lock in and lock into your opponent and obviously just try to win the fight. But when you're watching a YouTube video or you're watching a clip, I do feel that those clips or YouTube videos don't really do the game justice because of the way that the game feels when striking. So that's, to me, where I'm currently at with the lighting. Again, it's not an inconvenience for me personally, but I do understand how others feel and why it's just so different from what we've seen in the past. And another thing in combination with the lighting is flow state, right? This has been a topic of discussion since the beta. When the beta dropped and we seen flow state and we seen how the screen goes and the commentary slows down and it's not really there anymore, it kind of just sounds blurred out in the background. That, to me, I still don't know how to feel about it because I've gotten used to it, but I still feel that they could have done something different, right? This effect of these things flowing in the back and it going, dark. I don't know, man. I feel like I really like the concept of what flow state is, because if you play Madden, you see that we've seen X Factors. If you play 2K, NBA, you see takeovers. You see different things where if a fighter is in that flow, they start to take over the match and they start landing big shots. And that's what flow state is. It can be OP depending on who you are using. Like Alex Pereira, right? He's one of the guys that has a super OP flow state, and that's just the truth, right? But then if you fight somebody who thinks as soon as they turn on flow state that they're just going to go out there and put the paws on you and you're not going to be able to touch them, man, you are in for a rude awakening. Because I can tell you guys, I am more confident when somebody has flow state on than when somebody doesn't have it on, because I know that they are going to be open. As long as I'm guarding myself, I'm going to be able to counter either a knockout or some sort of stun wobble. Something is going to happen in my favor most of the time that I feel confident as soon as I see flow state, because some people forget that flow state is not just a get out of jail free card. It's not something that's going to get you a knockout every single time. Again, the odds increase obviously if you're smart, but that's really that with flow state, right? I think the only negative is in the presentation, where some people state that it looks like a mobile game, and I have to disagree with that because I don't think the game looks anything like a mobile game. I think that there's a substantial graphical upgrade, but there's still many improvements that they could make, and we're going to get into that. Now, the ground game, that for me is probably the biggest negative of UFC 6. It is just not good in my opinion. I never liked it in UFC 5, and I'm so surprised that this game was in development for 3 years and the ground game was not overhauled. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you have control of the ground game. To me, I'm just not the best player in the ground game, so I don't really like it as much. I do enjoy the stand and bang online mode because I feel like that's more of a fair shot for me. But man, it's really hard to enjoy this game for what it is when you're playing, ranked ladders and people take you to the ground. At least for me personally, right? I've been able to defend myself, but it just doesn't feel like there's really a chance sometimes, right? If you get the right person, and that has to do with inexperience and things like that. I completely get that, but I definitely want to see the ground game get overhauled with UFC 7. Now, 7 is a long time away because, as we know, this game comes out every 2 to 3 years. But now that the striking has been overhauled the way that it has, I do believe that we are going to see the ground game get worked on and fixed in the next UFC video game that we do play, because again, it feels so behind, right? Presentation gotten an upgrade, striking gotten an upgrade. Lots of things within the game feel really good. And then when you get to the ground, it's like, man, are we still playing UFC 5? And that's the biggest comparison. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest issue in the game for me. And I couldn't dislike it more. And submissions still being similar and the same as they were back in UFC 5, that's something else as well as part of the ground game, right? There are many positives to take away from UFC 6, but the ground game is definitely the biggest negative. It's the biggest outlier within the game, and it just shows you that the priority for the ground game simply wasn't there. Now let's talk about striking, y'all, because striking is my favorite thing in this game. It is so good. There are times where it does feel like the shots don't connect all the way, right? That's something for me personally where I do feel that could be better. Now, when somebody hits you and they leave themselves open, or if they try hitting you and you dodge or you block it and then you try hitting them with a hook and that hook connects, man, the game really makes you pay when you do dumb stuff like that. And that's something that I can appreciate. It hasn't felt that way in a really long time. It feels like back then you were just able to just kind of just still do things and not pay for certain things. But this year you pay for certain things when you make those mistakes. It does feel like it's more catered to more competitive players and players that know what they're doing, which actually motivates me to want to continue to get better at this game, because again, the striking is very good, and it goes along with the fighter uniqueness that we do see in UFC 6. The way that fighters feel like themselves, that is something that as a WWE 2K player, I've been waiting for those wrestlers to feel like themselves like they do in UFC, man. When you see Pereira, when you see Izzy, when you see a lot of these fighters, the dodging, the blocking, just even the hitting and the way they punch, it is just a really good thing. Strickland being one of the most unique fighters in the game is also really good too. I think that seeing the way that they approach fighter uniqueness and they made this such a big thing for UFC 6, I think that it is something that I can truly appreciate, and I think that those that play the game will appreciate it as well, because it does feel like there is more of a diversity in terms of the fighters that people pick when they want to fight and things like that. It doesn't feel like everybody just stays stuck on one certain guy, right? I've been stuck on Izzy because he's one of my favorite fighters of all time, but just overall, it does feel like there is a big positive in terms of what and how they approach the fighter uniqueness, the striking, and all that stuff in UFC 6. But one negative that we cannot forget about, y'all, and this is super important, is the stamina. Now, it feels like when I play online, fighters can throw 100, 130 punches and still have tons of stamina left for a round 3 or round 4. There is a massive issue with that, and I think that's something that's probably going to get patched. Now, I do hope that there is a balance, because usually in my experience with other sport games and the way that these companies and these developers patch the game, sometimes it goes from, okay, it's super crazy to, okay, it's super low and now it's not balanced at all, right? So I want to see that get improved within the next patch, and I really want to see the game take that big leap in terms of, you know, them fixing stamina and them fixing certain things, of course, that are, you know, wrong with the game. Now, I haven't really experienced too many crazy things. I do feel that this is, again, a solid product. Is it better than UFC 5 now that we've gotten towards the end of this video? I genuinely think so. I just want to play this game right now. UFC 5, I played for about 2 days and I was like, man, I'm good. There wasn't that motivation to get any better at the game, and it was just that, right? I played for about 2 days. I picked it up a couple months later, but UFC 6 I've been playing since Thursday night when I got my early access code, and I've just been playing since, and it's been a really phenomenal time thus far. Lots of positives, but also negatives that we have to go on ahead and talk about throughout this video. Overall, solid game. We'll have to see how they continue to improve the game and make sure that it is better, because it's far from perfect, but it is better than UFC 5, and I think that people will enjoy the experience if they do pick this up at a discounted price, or just something where you're not spending $100, because I do think $100 is a lot. If you are a viewer that likes the UFC but don't want to spend $100, trust me, y'all, I don't think the $100 is worth it unless you want to play the couple of days early. But if you've already made it this far by the time you're watching this video and you don't have the game yet, save the extra 20-30 bucks and just get the regular edition for UFC, because we do know it takes a couple months for that to go on sale and all that good stuff. So I do think, again, it is solid, but still needs some work, and we'll have to see how they approach that next. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna catch y'all. Peace.